Hi everyone, today I'm going to do a no makeup look. It's one of our favourite looks. I've done quite a few videos of no makeup looks. It's just one of those perennial favourites, isn't it? It really is. So as you can probably tell by my costume, my outfit, I'm going to do the Victorian take on it today. And I just think the no makeup look, when you look at it through the context of the Victorians, who were quite a weird bunch, I just think it really lends itself to that period, because no makeup is really the ultimate magic trick, isn't it? It's concealing its very own existence, and that's what I find so interesting about it. I mean, I love obviously doing no makeup because it's always so fun to do, but also when you look at it through that Victorian lens, I always find it almost extra fascinating. So we're going to get started. So we're going to start with skincare. And in the Victorian era, I mean, makeup was out. You weren't allowed to wear makeup. You shouldn't be wearing makeup. It was morally wrong. It was morally corrupt, if you like. It would just be something that would create so much anxiety that it just wasn't worth it. So Victorian women had to become extremely good at covert makeup, at making themselves up without looking like they had any makeup on. And Queen Victoria, I guess, was a bit of a poster girl for this look, because she particularly disliked makeup or obvious makeup. And I think that the values and the feelings around makeup was that it wasn't respectable, it wasn't pure, it wasn't morally right, and that women at that time, who didn't have much of a say in about anything, were supposed to be very virtuous and at home being good mothers, often depicted in imagery sewing or looking after children. And unlike previous times in history when it was more of a trickle-down effect, so the trends would come really from aristocracy or royalty, it was quite an interesting time because you've got the Industrial Revolution and the rising middle classes, and this idea of sort of middle class ordinariness, goodness, and the values were really dictating the trends. So although the outfits were pretty ornate, and you can see I've got lots of lace on and jet, which was very fashionable at the time, the faces were very pared down indeed. I mean, even in Queen Victoria's official portrait in 1859, she looks like she's got so many, so much finery and pomp and all the rest of it on, but her face is, well, her nose is red and shiny, and this is a sign that no makeup has been used. So I find it all very odd and very interesting. So on to skincare, and I've made a chamomile flower infusion. So just using chamomile flowers and hot water, let that cool down, to use as a face and eye cleanser. And this was actually endorsed by Queen Victoria herself, who did say that she had done this. She used this to clean her eyes in her diaries. You could also use anything really, all other types of infusions, from elderflower to roses to lavender water. They were all very popular. Actually feels really nice. And anything to do with skincare was considered perfectly fine. You didn't have to hide that, because skincare was next to cleanliness, and cleanliness was king in the Victorian era, because they were figuring out that germs and poor hygiene caused diseases. And not just that, it was also connected to morality as well. So if a clean face was a good face. And the soap industry was starting to be really commercialised, and it was a really big business. So although there wasn't a beauty industry per se yet, there was a really big burgeoning soap industry, and everyone loved soap and washing their hands and washing everything all the time. In fact, that saying, I don't know if you know that saying, that cleanliness is next to godliness or something like that. That's a very Victorian saying, basically saying that if you're clean, you're good. It feels really nice. My face feels very clean, the Victorians would approve. So on to moisturiser, and there was nothing amoral about moisturiser. That was perfectly fine. You could be seen to be ordering it from the apothecary, or you could get it from your pharmacist to make it up, or you could buy it from one of the soap companies that were also mass producing by that point cold creams and face creams and things. Or you could make it yourself at home. There were lots and lots of books around at the time that had recipes in, so you could easily make it at home. I was very lucky during my documentary series to work with Dr. Shen Wong at Keele University. So I'm going to quickly show you a clip of how I made the version that I'm going to use today. We're making a beauty staple, cold cream. It's an emulsion of water and fats and is an all-purpose moisturiser. Versions of it have been around since the ancient Greeks, but the Victorians updated it with some new ingredients, and it was a central part of their beauty regime.
So this is the wax we'll be using.
Oh yeah, that's the white wax here, yes.
Yes. And okay, we need to substitute one ingredient in the recipe.
We do.
So this is jojoba oil, and I believe in the book he specifies that we need to use spermaceti, which we are not using.
We are not, no. Spermaceti was the liquid wax from a sperm whale's head, and it was also used as a fuel and lubricant.
And then because he specially requested the glycerinated version, so
Yay.
this is our glycerin.
What a great all-rounder. We still love glycerin today. It's in so many moisturisers.
Indeed, because it's hygroscopic in its nature, so it attracts moisture to itself, and I think that's pretty much what we want in a moisturiser.
Yes. The Victorians loved a new chemical, and glycerin appeared in everything from soap to explosives, nitroglycerin or dynamite.
I'm just melting down the white wax, and I've added in the oils. And what I'm going to do now is to actually put our molten mixture into the pestle mortar, and then I'm going to add the rose water in.
It's so nice to see things made this way by hand.
The old-fashioned way.
Yeah, the old-fashioned way.
It will slowly set into a cream. So you can actually see now when it's still a little bit warm, it's a very nice lotion at the moment.
It's lovely. It looks very moisturising.
Indeed. Would you like to try some?
I would like to. Pop a bit on my hand.
All right, just a drop. There we are.
Thank you. Oh, it's lovely. I can imagine that although some of it is going to go into the skin, there's going to be a real sheen left on the surface.
Yes, indeed.
Which would play in really nicely to that youthful aura, glow,
Glow.
that the Victorian ladies love so much.
Yes.
So I'm just going to put on my cream. So this would have been a nice moment in the Victorian no makeup routine. And one of the good things about this from the Victorian point of view was that it would, well, like all moisturisers, I guess, some of it sinks in and some of it stays on the surface. And if you think there wasn't any foundation or anything even close to foundation or concealer at that point, if you wanted to cover and you applied your powder on top of this, it would at least stick. You could get a bit more makeup to stick, a bit more powder, I should say, to stick to the surface of the skin. Otherwise, without this, if you just put powder on, it wouldn't stay on the skin. So it kind of had two purposes, and it was also all about kind of looking good. You know, if you didn't look good, this was the weird and horrible thing about Victorian philosophy, is that they genuinely believed that how good you were as a person on the inside was reflected on the outside. I was pondering this very subject the last time I visited Charles Dickens' house in London. I think what I'm finding most fascinating here is just how much of a no-win situation women were in. On one hand, you're supposed to be naturally gorgeous because this is a sign of your inner virtue shining through, but you're also being told that you cannot use makeup. What's a girl to do? So on to blush, and this is the dangerous area for all Victorian women because blush obviously will bring a lovely flush, glow, a youthful appearance that everyone wanted, but you couldn't be seen to be wearing it, you couldn't be seen to own it. You could buy it from Pears. They had Pears soap. They made a version of this liquid blush, or you could have a pharmacist make it for you if you could, I don't know, trust them enough to not mention that they were making blush for you. And you wouldn't want to keep it out on your dressing table. It definitely had to be on the down low. And again, there were lots of recipe books. So I've made this one from one of my recipe books, which was the Book of Receipts. It's made from Brazil dust, which is like a dye from a natural tree, isinglass, which is fish gelatin, ugh, gross. And then it has things like alamin, cochineal, and borax. So I actually boiled the Brazil dust and water together, and then I added all the other ingredients and just kept it boiling. And eventually you sieve it out, so you have this kind of effect. And then you would just have to be extremely careful. But the beauty of a liquid blush, as we all know, is that if it's applied gently and pressed into the skin, voila, no one will know. No one's gonna know. No one's gonna know. I mean, there's no way you'd know this was fake. Put a little bit on your lips as well. You see? Got that natural glow. No one knows I'm using makeup. Because really, this was, to be caught with obvious rouge on was just not good at all. One of the scary things was that in certain towns, anyway, here in the UK, there was morality laws, and it meant that if you suspected a woman of being a prostitute, so it might just be that a school teacher put too much blush on, but they could actually be taken in by the police and given a genital examination, or if you refuse, put in jail for a year. I mean, it doesn't even bear thinking about. So you did have to be extremely careful. So I think for a day look, I wouldn't want any more than that, because otherwise I'm going to be caught, which I don't want to be caught. But in the evening, because there's candlelight and gas lights, I can probably get away with some more, but we maybe not go that far right now. And I've also made some powder blush, which they did have, which we'll try as well. So since one writer at the time said there is nothing more disgusting than a violently rouged woman is the most disgusting object that the eyes can behold. So with that in mind, I think we'll stop there for the day look and we'll go on to powder. So on to powder, and this is really the mainstay of Victorian makeup. And again, this is something you can actually admit to using. Even Queen Victoria herself admitted to using powder to cover sunburn. So it's legit. It was really important that we apply it now. So while we've got this tackiness on the skin, so we've still got the residue of the cold cream, because this means that it will really adhere to the skin, but also it's going to give us more coverage. And since it's the only foundation or concealer available, we need it to stick. The powders that were available, there's lots of different ones. So I'm going to use potato starch today, but there was also rice flour. There was fancier things like Venetian talc and French chalk that you could get from your pharmacist. The soap companies were making little pots of powder as well. So it was okay to use it, actually. It was okay. It wasn't frowned upon too much. And then there was things like powdered milk of magnesia, kaolin, zinc oxide, which was quite a new thing at the time and was considered the pièce de résistance of powder because, actually it would give you a bit of sun protection as well. So that was quite a new thing. Anyway, in terms of application, we didn't have the puffs that we have today. There wasn't a commercialised sort of powder puff, industry. There were swan down puffs and puffs that you could have made locally, or when we're making sort of powder puffs and things, or you could do something really simple like this, a little drawstring cotton bag, which you could make yourself. There were nice little fancy ones which were made of silk and looked like little purses and things, or you could just use chamois, so chamois leather. I'm going to use this bag first just to see what it's like. So we're sort of almost baking with this because we want plenty to go on. So we want it to take away the shine and also give us a little bit of coverage if possible, although of course it's never going to be what we expect of coverage in today's money. I'm actually going to use the chamois just to see what that's like. And I love the fact that because there was no portable way to touch up, so if you went out for the day, there wasn't a way to kind of take your powder with you, and you wouldn't really be able to use it in public anyway. So there were lots of covert ways of of taking your powder with you. You can either have it in a pendant, and there's quite a fashionable walnut-shaped pendant, which I actually have. It's not here at the moment, but it's a walnut-shaped pendant, and inside it's got a portrait of somebody, but concealed behind the portrait is a little powder puff. So you'd have to go into, I guess, the ladies' loo, and while you're in there, secretly just give yourself a little powder down. And then there are wonderful stories of like powder and powder puffs concealed in the top of parasols. So, you know, umbrellas to keep the sun off you and keep it inside there. So that is my Victorian mattified face. I don't think anyone would know that I was wearing face powder. I think I could get away with that. So on to lip salve, and lip salve was fantastic in this era because you could get tinted lip salves, and the recipe books talk about all of these different lip salves, and some of them you can tell they've got a tint in, but they don't even admit it in the recipe. But then when you look at the list of ingredients, there'll be some carmine in there, or there'll be some grapes in there, or there's sandalwood, or there's things that you know obviously would have given pretty good colour, but they're still claiming to be skincare and lip salves. So I'm going to use this one, but I'm just going to show you now how I made it. So taking a look through the Victorian pharmacist recipe books is so interesting. There's lots of lip salves which sound so innocent. We've got French lip salve, German lip salve, Italian lip salve. It all sounds very exotic. But I think I'm going to make this lip salve, which is the grape one. So it's obviously going to have quite a bit of colour, but it is called a salve again. So it's supposed to be natural, but let's have a look. I'm going to start with some red grapes. So that's our alkanet root, beeswax and butter. The fact that they've put butter in would mean it would go off very, very quickly. That alkanet is an interesting touch. It's a herb used as a dye. The grapes may be what's advertised, but they're not the ingredient doing the work. Right, I'm going to take it off the stove. I think it's done, and I'm just going to have a look at this colour. Ooh, that is magnificent. That's what I would call a human colour. It's almost like the colour of blood. So when it's on the skin and blended, it will look completely natural and almost as if you're blushing from within. In fact, there are lots of recipes in the pharmacist books that sound perfectly innocent and natural, but they are not what they seem. Just going to apply this. Pretty. It's like a nice kind of subtle pink. And the butter would mean that it's not too shiny. Very clever, you see. They knew that it wasn't going to be all glossy and look like something fake. It almost has like a matte shine, if that makes sense. I mean, look, who's going to know? I've got tinted lip salve on. So I was going to go on to eyes and the Victorian no makeup eyes, but I think actually this would probably be a day look. This would probably stop here for the no makeup Victorian day look, and I think it looks completely undetectable. I mean, when you think I've got a lot of powder on, quite a lot of blush and tinted lip salve, I think you could definitely get away with that. Even in these bright lights I can't see anything. So we'll call this the day look. So I'm now going to build it up to the evening look. And for the evening, the powders were slightly different. So you could buy a blue or lavender tinted face powder if you had the cash, and that would counteract any sallowness that you would get from either the gaslight or the candlelight. So that was a slight change for evening. And of course, eye makeup could be worn as long as it was done well. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. So the first thing is you could tint your brows. So cloves, burnt cloves were still around, and they'd been huge all throughout the Georgian period. Not only when you burn them do they make an amazing colour, really, really good colour, but also they're an applicator in themselves. Or you could use lamp black or coal dust, and coal dust, of course, you get everywhere. There wasn't any mascara. There was no such thing as mascara. It's a good 50 years away from commercial mascara, which is quite interesting. Because at that time, men were actually wearing it. It was called mascaro. It was a theatrical thing, but men could buy it, and it was soap pigment, which eventually became women's mascara. And it was used to tint beards. So if you had grey in your beards, or you just wanted to darken your beard, it was used for that. But sadly, no mascara. So women had to get creative and either get that coal dust from the fire, or you could burn a match, or you could get some coal from that, some lamp black from that. I'm going to use charcoal here. So I've got some ground charcoal. So I'm going to use on a brush a little bit of sweet almond oil. You could use Vaseline as well, actually, which I'm sure lots of people did. Okay, so just going to start to tint. So it's very subtle, but I'm definitely seeing a difference here. Can you see that? It's just starting to add some colour and a little bit of length. Now the only problem with this, as you can imagine, it could come off, so you wouldn't want to rub your eyes and you definitely wouldn't want to be caught in the rain. I mean, they wouldn't have had spoolies, so they would have been using just a normal brush or using their fingers for this. And I doubt they would have put any on their lower lashes, because that would have been far too worrying. There was a trend for trimming your eyelashes as well, because they believed that they would grow back thicker, which was a shame. Okay, I think that's about as much as I think I can get away with. The other thing is they would use, castor oil was really popular for brows, so you could use just castor oil on your brows. If they're already dark, you wouldn't want to darken them anymore, so you may not use anything like coal dust or anything like that, and you just use castor oil on its own. And castor oil was also used as eyeshadow, so giving you that glossy brow. What we would consider today a very editorial look was actually quite a thing then. And you can imagine in those darkly, dimly lit parlours, a nice glossy brow would actually look very nice indeed. Plus, the castor oil would help your brows to grow, so win-win. I'm going to use a little drop of castor oil, or sweet almond oil, any oil, just on the centre of my eyelids. And if you're feeling really daring, but you'd have to be good at makeup, you could use a small brush using just the charcoal and push it into the roots of the lashes. But as I say, this was definitely more of an evening look. But we all know that a tight line, a bit of a tight line, is always a good thing. And it's basically what it was. So just pushing it into the roots of the lashes, either from underneath or from on top. It is dropping down. Hold on. Just using my powder to flick it off. Yeah, so I'm definitely starting to see a more defined eye. So since my eyebrows are already a bit dark, I'm going to go one step further. I'm going to risk everything and add a bit more colour, because I read a brilliant article in a magazine from around this time where it said a little colour in the arrangement of one's face can work wonders. So I'm going to be cheeky and add a touch more blush, and I've made this time a powder blush. This one is just a French chalk and a cochineal, and what I love best about this particular recipe book, I mean they're all the same, but they have like, I think it's because they're slightly trying to hide the makeup kind of in between other things, so that if anyone opened the book, they'd be like, oh, it's just a recipe book for food. So this particular blush was in between the recipe for a pie crust and how to make dynamite. So I think that sums up the Victorians right there. So I'm going to use this one, and because obviously depending on which colouring or dye you use in your blush, you get a slightly different effect. So this is a cochineal, so it's quite a bluey pink. So I'll have to be really careful. But it's just amping up my colour. Oh, no. But we have got to imagine candlelight, gaslights. Yeah, I can probably get away with that just. Yeah, this would not work during the day. But I think we'll be okay. Yeah, there we go. And then for the evening, another thing that was so easy to buy and no shame in it, and I actually had this in my video I made years ago, and if you remember, if you've seen the one I did about the best and worst makeup throughout history when I launched my book. And this is just red crepe paper. So wrapping paper was becoming quite a thing, and you could buy red crepe paper. You could go to this general store, and as a respectable person, you could ask for red crepe paper and no one would know you're going to use it as blush. So there was, no anxiety in it whatsoever. Dip it into a little bit of water. Now what I will do actually, just get some things, I'll take off the lip salve because this is going to reject the colour. So you would have put this straight on to your natural lips. So I'm just going to take that off and then rub the crepe paper on. Oh my God, way too much colour. So I'm going to put that as a stain, and it really would stain underneath. And then I'm going to go back in. Sorry, I just couldn't find the lip salve. And I'm going to go back in. Stain my fingers as well. Dead giveaway. So yeah, you did have to be careful. Very careful. I don't think I'm going to get away with this. I think I'm going to be pulled in for an examination. I'm going to give that a blot. Okay. That we might be able to get away with. But only because it's dark. Now what I could use on my fingers is probably sugar, because that was quite a fashionable way of exfoliating your face, using sugar and lemon juice and things like that. And I'm sure that's what they used as well to get the makeup colour off their fingers. I'm going to try using a little bit of the cold cream as well, because that might dissolve the makeup on my fingers. That and a sugar scrub will hopefully get rid of all the signs of my immorality. This is not working. I think I'm going to need to use the scrub. Yeah. Uh-oh. I guess I could make up a story. I could say I was wrapping a present, and then I was taking the present out in the rain, and the paper got caught in the rain, and my hands got red. Okay, since I'm doing the no makeup look today, I'm going to take off a little bit. I think I put on too much of the crepe paper red. So I'm going to use the cold cream. Oh, they wouldn't have had that. What am I doing? Get a tissue or a cloth. And just try and soften that down a bit. Because actually I'm going to the theatre and I'm worried when the lights come up. People are going to notice that I'm wearing something on my lips. So I'm going to go back in with my lip salve, which is altogether a lighter colour. I did actually use warm water with the crepe paper, so maybe that released a bit too much of the dye. Okay, that's going to be better. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do is nails, and although there isn't any like nail polish necessarily, there's lots of recipes for soaking your nails in sweet almond oil or castor oil or olive, all different oils, and then using either a red oil or something like a red powder. So I could use actually my red blush, my powder blush, and put a drop of oil into that, and then just massaging it onto the nails. There's also, of course, lots of manicure equipment like chamois buffers, so lots of buffing of nails. So again, it's all about this sort of fake makeup, this healthy, this natural feeling to everything really that's on your face or nails or hair or anything. I'm going to just take a little bit of this oil and just massage it onto my, you can see that, just gives a little bit of colour. But again, no one will know, hopefully. Yeah, so you can see the difference. It's just kind of a healthy nail glow. So that's the kind of before and after. Very natural, very, very natural. So that's it. That's my no makeup makeup, the Victorian edition. And I have to say, I feel very, very respectable, albeit in quite an evening way. But I just think the recipes are so interesting, and just seeing how things like the liquid blush behave on the skin, it almost gives you that floridy look that's just so natural looking, like you really can't tell you're wearing it. Ditto the powder, all of it really. And the Plimsoll, wow, the colour. Chef's kiss on that. So I absolutely love it. There was one other makeup look around at this time that was a very expensive look to achieve, so not many people wore it. It was also super controversial. It's a much more painted look. I have made those recipes as well, so I'd love to do a video about that next time if you guys are interested. But until then, I hope you found this interesting, and yeah, that is the Victorian edition of the No Makeup Makeup.